A very good morning to you all. Today in this video we will be discussing the 4 articles of the Hindu editorial page. Today is 16th June 2020. There are 4 articles. First article is regarding the India and China. Remaining non-aligned is a good advice regarding the India and China. The second article is regarding in pandemic crisis bridging the Gulf with West Asia, that is the Persian Gulf and the ties with India. The third article is regarding India-Pakistan ties. The final article is regarding the ICMR call for action, that is the antibody test study by Indian Council of Medical Research. Before I begin, I am Prashanth. I welcome you all to Educational Stuff by Prashanth Konala. Let's get started. This is a cartoon of the day. It represents that this is regarding the Andhra Pradesh government. YSRCP means YS Rashikar, that party. As you can see from this picture that it is led by somebody who is not from this party, that is Chandrababu Naidu, who belongs to Telugu Desam party. Now the state is run by the ideas and ideologies by that person. That is the picture which resembles and the scenario. The first article is regarding remaining non-aligned is a good advice. For weeks, India and China standoffs dominated newspaper headlines, warning about the possibility of the major conflict along the line of actual control in Ladakh Sikkim sectors, with both India and China agreeing to step back marginally from positions adopted at the beginning of May and reaching an agreement. The newspaper and most others believe that the tensions have abated. The reality is, however, very different. There are behind the statements confirmed facts about the incursions during the May are that the Chinese forces came in a sizable number and crossed the undemarcated line of actual control at quite a few points in Ladakh and Sikkim sectors. These were in the vicinity of Pangong So Lake, the Gunman Valley and the hot springs on an area in Ladakh and Nakula in Sikkim sector. If you want to see the article regarding discussion of India and China, I have made a video regarding the dispute areas in Sikkim, Ladakh. A detailed description and a detailed analysis is done in that video. You can see it from the eye icon right now, which is displayed on the screen. Talks at the level of military commanders from Lieutenant General to brigaders and lower formations have produced repeat official jargon, a partial disengagement. Both sides have agreed according to the same set of officials to handle the situation in the line with the agreement that has been reached. The bluntness of the statements conceals many of the truth. This time it would appear that Chinese are here to stay in places such as Galwan Valley. It would also unclear as of now that whether Chinese would withdraw from Pangong So anytime soon. Restorations of a status quo ante which existed in the mid-April is thus however on an origin. Another bone of contention also seems unlikely to be resolved for quite some time. For example, Chinese insistence that India stop road construction in the border areas on the ground that is taking place in Chinese territory, which India's context insisting that it is taking place within the Indian territory. Public attention had to be deflected from Chinese sizable military presence along the line of actual control, comprising armed vehicles, artillery units and infantry combat vehicles in far larger numbers than any time in the recent years. India also needs to undertake a detailed analysis of recent events to find proper answers that may vex questions. To merely affirm that India's decision to strengthen its border infrastructure was a main trigger to recent show of strength by China would be simplicity. Both India and China have been strengthening their border infrastructure in recent years, and while the strengthening of Darbuk-Shiok Daulok Beg Oldie road may have been angered Chinese to ascribe China's recent show of the strength to which it would be misplaced. Admittedly, Chinese President Xi Jinping disdains his to keep your head low and bide your time, but Mr. Xi not only know the act of irresponsibility, demonstration of military strength merely because India was improving its border infrastructure would fall into this category. Nor does the action to fit it with the Western assertions that should demonstrate the steps of Chinese newly assertive post-pandemic foreign policy. There have also been far weightier reasons for China's action, and India needs to deep dive to discern whether there is a method behind China's actions. The American orbit. If we were to examine the geopolitical factor, it is no secret that while India professes to be non-aligned, it is increasingly perceived as having a shift towards the American orbit of influence. India's United States tilt is perhaps the most pronounced in the domain of US-China relations. Quite a few instances could be highlighted to confirm the perception of India trade to the side of US and against China, whether there is a conflict of interest between these two. An evident degree of geopolitical convergence also exists between US and India into the Indo-Pacific gain directed by China. India is today a member of Quad, that is US, Japan, Australia and India all put together called as a Quad, which has a definite anti-China connotation. US President Trump's latest policy of redesigning the G7, including in its countries such as India, India has conveyed its acceptance, but excluding China provides China yet another instance of India and China being in opposite camps. A recent editorial by Chinese Global Times confirms how seriously Chinese views the growing proximity between the Delhi and Washington. Coming next to the bilateral relations and notwithstanding the public bonhomie at the level of Mr. Xi and Prime Minister Modi, relations between these two countries have been steadily deteriorating. India is almost in the land holdout in Asia's against China's Belt Road Initiative, that is BRI. India also loses an opportunity to declaim against the Chinese-Pakistan Economic Corridor, that is CPEC. China further views of India's assertion regarding GLIT as an implicit attack of Chinese-Pakistan Economic Corridor, that is CPEC. In its flagship program, more recently, India was one of the earliest countries to put curbs and restrictions for Chinese foreign direct investment. Such sentiments do impact border matters. Almost all India border agreements are premised and presumed neutrally of both countries as the special representatives for border talks with China. This sentiment was an ever-present reality during all border discussions. The document agreement between the Government of Republic of India and Government of People's Republic of China and political parameters on the political parameters of guiding principles for the settlement of India-China border questions, that is 2005, one of the very few documents relating of China-India border, reflects the reality. Chinese internal dynamics. One should also not ignore the impact of neutral or internal pressures that have been generated with China, in a part due to COVID-19 pandemic and in a part due to other factors. Mr. Xi has no doubt accumulated more power than any other in Chinese communist leader, say Mao, but there are reports growing opposition within the party ranks of sometimes, including the BRI context. The history and the past, present. There are dangerous terms more for countries such as Chinese vicinity and especially India. India is being increasingly projected as an alternative model to the China and being co-opted into the wider anti-China alliance with Chinese clear pursues as a provocation. We cannot ignore or forget the circumstances that led to unforgettable India-China War of 1962. Faced with the disaster of a great leap forward and increasingly isolation globally, Mao chose to strike at India rather than confront Russia or the West. A single misstep could lead to a wider conflagration which both sides must avoid. This is not the time for India to see as a front end of a belligerent coalition of forces seeking to put China in its place even at North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO, now seems to be joining the anti-China bandwagon under the prodding from the US. India had consistently followed a direct policy in the past, and it is advisable that it remains truly non-aligned and not become a part of any coalition that would not be in India's long-term interest. Regarding remaining non-aligned is a good advice. This is now the time for India to be seen as the front end of a belligerent collateral or coalition seeking to put China The next article is regarding the pandemic crisis bringing the Gulf West Asia. As the world continues to collaborate in dealing with COVID-19 pandemics, which has shattered lives, economies, and arguably even political and global institutions, the post-pandemic architecture may look drastically different from what we have been used to. For India and its foreign policy, the West Asia or Gulf regions hold a significant court for strategic, economic, and even domestic political agendas ranging from migration to energy security. The pandemic has initiated a reverse migration of India blue-collar workers as projects in oil states stall and infrastructure development halts amid a contracting global economy that some say is more worse than the Great Depression of the 1930s. The stakes in number. India's Ministry of External Affairs Jaishankar had said that India would repatriate more than 1 lakh of its citizens between May 17th and June 13th from 60 countries, a measure of whom were expected to be from the West Asia region. Between June 10th and 16th, there are only 20 flights scheduled to bring India citizens back to India and Saudi Arabia alone. India in the neighboring United Arab Emirates, that is UAE, more than 3.4 million Indian workers overall, all an estimated figure of close to 9 million Indian works in West Asia, were responsible for sending back more than 50% of India's annual infusion of $80 billion in remittances. The UAE alone is responsible for $19 billion in remittances. Much of the impressive numbers above are now under stress, perhaps for the first time since the first Gulf War in 1991. The oil price crash, triggered by the expectations of oversupply following the dispute of output caps between Saudi Arabia and Russia, exacerbated by the crash in the demand due to COVID-19, will carry massive quotes of West Asian economies and by association to foreign workers employed there. However, according to the Dubai Chamber of the Commerce and Industry Survey, more than 70% of businesses classified as small and medium-sized enterprises in Dubai, many owned by Indian nationals, may not survive over the months to come as a labor-critical industry such as tourism, conventions, hospitality, airlines bear the immediate brunt. To put it in perspective, according to the 2019 US-UAE Business Council report, the UAE's hospital sector itself contributes 4.6% of the country's GDP, making around 6 lakh jobs that are mostly fulfilled by the foreign workers. In Saudi Arabia, consumers spending for April 2020 compared to the same in the last year was reportedly down by 34%. However, beyond the immediate effect of oil price crash, is expected to have a significant blow in the reform plans initiated by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin, specifically mega projects such as envisioned $500 billion futuristic mega city of Nome planned on the coast of Red Sea. Oil and investment. India gets around 60% of its hydrocarbon requirements from West Asia. On an annualized basis, India saves up to $1 billion for each $1 drop of oil prices. When Brent still hovering around $40, the softening oil prices have helped cushion the impact of the national lockdown on the balance of payment. India has also taken advantage of low prices, build up its strategy reverses and looking for the offshore storage options. The major sovereign wealth funds and other officials of financial institutions in West Asia have been hit hard by COVID-19 as well. Some have seen that there is real estate and retail portions of portfolios shrink dramatically over the last 3 months. India is well placed to attract a significant amount of capital from West Asia. The steps to be taken at the starting point, working with the government of Maharashtra to expedite land acquisition of 50 billion mega refinery project could be an important first step. Saudi Aramco and the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company have committed to investing $25 billion in the project. Fast-track resolutions of the endless litigation that have been bedeviled the sale of major stake of Mumbai Airport by GVK Constructions, that includes UAE Sovereign Fund, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, that is ADIA, also send out the positive signal to the markets. Some of the UAE largest companies such as MR, Etihad have previously had a tough time with their investments in India. By creating a few immediate success stories, India had an opportunity to transform the landscape and attract the kind of long-term capital that economy needs. The government has also announced that it has to set up an empowered group headed by the Cabinet Secretary Rajiv to take up necessary steps to forward attract FDI into India. The reverse migration and jobs. If the economic prophecies come true till certain degree, India will also share a brunt with West Asia, and both were well placed to help each other in its regard. Arguably, more than the loss of trade revenues and remittances, the return of semi-skilled and skilled workers alike into the economy already struggling with the jobs may become a point of worry. To mitigate same, the government had tried to soften the blow by launching Skilled Workers Arrival Database, that is Swadesh, which attempts to capture the skills profile of returning workers and house them into a central portal that can be accessed by Indian and foreign companies. Regarding the pandemic crisis, bridging with the Gulf with West Asia, it is having a unique democracies, that is a constitutional right of equality. It is not backed up by comprehensive legislation. This particular article discusses how the migrant labor and the collateral trade can be done between India and West Asian countries. The next article is regarding building trust India on Pakistan ties. The shelling and retaliations along the line of control with Pakistan are a matter of concentration because it has been allowed to go and so long has become an everyday occurrence. The unfortunate death of a Sipai, Lungabai, and the airlifting of the two other soldiers, Tengon and Sipai Tangsoki, the command hospital in Udhampur because of the injuries due to shelling in Poonch sector, are the latest grim reminders of the phenomena. Sipai Abnomil is the third soldier to succumb to shelling of this area. All of the May, the Firfangal range, which fronts the Kashmir Valley, had seen mortar and small arms firing. On Saturday, splinters injuries from shelling in Hazipur in Uri claimed the life of Akhtar Begum, a civilian. This has been a worrying trend, as when the shells reach deeper, then they fall in the residential areas in villages such as Churundu and Kilkoti. When shells of being raining villagers panic, leave their homes and run further to temporary shelters. The additional disruption of the life, the aftermath of the dilution of Article 370 last August and COVID-19 lockdown, is something that should be addressed with urgency. Shelling should not be allowed to a regular occurrence. Ceasefire with Pakistan along the line of control is obviously not working, and the government needs to build bomb shelters for civilians until normalcy returns. Unfortunately, the aspect of relations for Pakistan in other spheres are poor repair as well. The two personnel from Indian mission is in Islamabad going suddenly missing for a while points to further breakdown in relations. It makes evident that India and Pakistan are unable to adhere the reciprocal protocols regarding staff posted in the missions, whether or not it is the tit-for-tat reaction for India's having expelled two Pakistan High Command officials, Abid Hussain Amid and Muhammad Tahir Khan, on the charges of espionage. India must take steps to ensure its diplomatic personnel and are spared such harassment, which is always present and episodically on the show. But with the New Delhi studiously avoiding any serious engagement in the staffing in Pakistan, commensurate with the vastly shrunk bilateral relations as the pandemic rages and travel curbs and reduced face-to-face opportunities, it might be prudent to temporarily maintain only essential mission staff in Pakistan till India is able to obtain the trust and stability in its ties. This is regarding the building the trust. India and Pakistan. India needs to re-engage with Pakistan and end the ceasefire. The next article is regarding the call for action on ICMR antibody tests. The results of serological tests conducted by 69 districts of Indian Council Medical Research have indicated that the confirmed number of COVID-19 infections reported from the RT-PCR tests are likely an undercount. Serological or antibody tests are not accurate as the PCR tests, but they are useful indications of the spread of the novel virus among the people. The ICMR study found that only 0.73% of people examined for antibodies produced specifically for SARS-CoV-2 via ELISA test have evinced or have an evidence of the past exposure to the virus. In the population with a low infection rate, there is a higher possibility of false positives being reported. A number of respondents could have been found that have released the antibody-specific coronavirus, but without actual exposure of SARS-CoV-2 alone. But the ICMR, in its methodology note in a paper in its online publication, Indian Journal of Medical Research, had said that the actual result would account for the limitations of ELISA test. If this is accepted, then the number of people found to have been exposed to the virus would be 7 lakh people or more. If the overall population of these districts is considered much higher than 35,000 people who have tested positive in the entire country during the period, the full paper detailing the results of the study of ICMR is still not up to date. There are suggestions that despite inaccuracies can be useful a guide to extend the infection among the vulnerable people with the hotspots, and periodic tests of this kind are mined must amid the rise of cases that have not crossed 3.2 lakh mark. The clear takeaway from this report is not what Director General of ICMR claimed, that there is no evidence of community transmission, but that there has been an adequate testing by the more accurate RT-PCR methods. While the lockdown strategy might have slowed down the risk of a rise of cases and fatalities in the early period of the outbreak in the country, the severe effect it had on the economy besides its uneven implementation in urban areas where physical distancing is a difficult proposition made it an untenable strategy to pursue over the longer term. India continues to register among the highest daily rises of COVID-19 cases and fatalities worldwide, and this had now burdened the health institutions in many urban centers following the easing of lockdown. Yes, the authorities continue to test at relatively low levels with a lot of variance of states. Some states such as Maharashtra, Gujarat have tested higher rate tests per million population than many others, but have not increased the overall testing to account of this relative rise of size of the outbreak. Telangana has still not ramped up testing number of adequately and had been opaque in releasing the testing of data. This is regarding the call for action where ICMR, the Indian Council Medical Research Antibody Test Study. If you want to follow me on Facebook, my channel, here I also given a Twitter, Instagram link so that you can follow me. Please do subscribe before I conclude. This is the end of the article discussion. I request you all to subscribe to my channel and comment how did you feel this lecture. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.